You are lying awake in the dim glow of your oil lamp, and the night air of the Roman suburbs presses softly through the shutters. In this story, you are no visitor. You live here. The coarse linen of your tunic brushes your shoulder as you turn on your side and let your mind wander over the day. Outside, far off, there is a dull thud of soldiers shifting wagons on the distant road, and the faint cry of a vendor still selling late-night bread. Your house is humble, one of many in a row of low structures built of mud brick, patched again and again after each season's rain. You can almost hear your own heartbeat because the night is quiet here, yet you know beyond the walls of this town and the next, the empire is rarely at peace. Endless wars are not some far-off rumor. They are the pulse that moves the grain shipments, that changes the price of olive oil, that sends young men away with shields and spears, and brings them back months later limping, or not at all. You rise and look toward the corner where your wife and children sleep on a straw pallet, their faces soft with dreams. There is a weight in your chest as you remember the day's market. You were there at dawn, haggling over sacks of barley, worrying that the tax collector might come early and demand more than you have. When the wars intensify, everything costs more, yet you are expected to pay the same tribute. You think about the merchant with the gray beard who muttered under his breath about shortages, how he spoke of caravans from the east intercepted by raiders, of roads too dangerous for the usual traders. You bought what you could, because the children must eat, and you tucked the coins back into your belt, hoping the scales were honest this time. Your mind drifts to the legion camped beyond the river. You have seen them in the early mornings, armor glinting, carrying long spears, their cloaks stained with dust. You know some of them by name, boys you saw running barefoot through these same streets years ago. Now they return as men with hardened eyes, with small trinkets from distant provinces hanging from their belts. You know better than to ask what they've seen, but sometimes, when the wine flows at a neighbor's table, stories spill out. They speak of forests where the air is wet and cold, where enemies hide in shadows and rush with cries that shake the bones. They speak of deserts where the sun burns so hot that men drop where they stand. You imagine yourself there and shiver, though your town tonight is warm. You sit back on the low wooden bench near the doorway. Your hands still smell faintly of garlic and crushed herbs from supper. Life continues in ordinary ways despite the distant battles. You have learned to weave the two realities together, the calm of daily bread, the chaos of distant war. You recall how in the afternoon you took your eldest boy to fetch water. The clay amphora was heavier than usual, or perhaps you are simply more tired than you admit. Along the road, a herald shouted news. Another province restless, another garrison dispatched. People gathered in little knots, shaking their heads but saying nothing aloud. Your neighbor, Marcus, came by while you were patching the roof. He is older, shoulders bent from years in the fields. He told you of the time he marched with the Legion decades ago. His words were slow, like someone reading a fading inscription. Endless mud, endless marches, and the constant sound of hammering iron as armor was mended in the dark. He said, "We ordinary ones live through wars even when we never step onto a battlefield. The bread is dearer, the nights are louder, the taxes heavier." You nodded and did not answer, for what answer is there? The night deepens. From somewhere farther off, a dog barks, then quiets. You picture the grain stores near the riverbank, guarded now because theft has grown common. You think of the millstones grinding late into the night, of the women whose hands never stop kneading, of the smell of rising loaves that will feed soldiers at dawn. You picture the blacksmith, sparks flying as he reforges a bent plowshare, the same hands that sharpen spear tips when orders come. Everyone plays a part, though no one says so plainly. Your own part feels small. You tend your patch of earth outside the walls, coaxing barley and beans from tired soil. Each day you watch the horizon for signs of smoke or the glint of helmets, though you hope never to see either. You've lived long enough to know that news travels faster than truth. A single rider may gallop in claiming victory, while another, hours later, whispers of defeat. By the time the officials confirm anything, weeks have passed. Meanwhile, you live, you mend, you plant again. The lamp flickers. You lie back down, staring at the rafters. The wood above you is etched with little marks, your children's attempts to count the seasons. You trace them with your eyes, remembering each year. There was the year of bad floods, when you lost half the crop. There was the year when war raged so close that refugees camped in the fields, their stories drifting like smoke through the village. There was the year you nearly left, nearly sold everything to follow a caravan south. But you stayed because this is the only life you know. Now the night is silent again, save for the breathing of your family. You let your mind wander through memories. The sound of sandals scuffing along the stone-paved street, the taste of figs in summer, the heavy sigh of an old mule. You think of soldiers you once watched marching away, their faces set towards some distant edge of the empire. You imagine them tonight, under alien stars, clutching their cloaks, whispering names of home. In some way you feel linked to them, though you have never held a sword. You share the same air, the same taxes, the same uncertain tomorrow. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you let yourself drift deeper into this life, not grand, not heroic, but woven into the endless fabric of Rome itself. You are one of the countless ordinary people who carry on while history crashes like waves beyond the horizon. Morning creeps in with a pale wash of light over the clay-tiled roofs. You stir before the others, hearing the muffled footsteps of a neighbor outside, someone already heading toward the fields. The coals in the hearth glow faintly. You stoke them with a dry reed bundle and feed them a few splinters of pine until a thin ribbon of smoke curls upward. The smell of ash clings to your tunic, familiar and grounding. You step out into the street and feel the coolness of dawn on your face. The air is damp, carrying the mixed scents of manure, olives crushed in a nearby press, and the sharp tang of tanned hides drying somewhere behind a shuttered workshop. Chickens scurry across the road, scratching at the dirt. Far off, a watchman calls out the hour in a low voice. More for tradition than necessity, life in the Empire's edge villages begins slowly, but always with purpose, because every day has tasks that can't be delayed. Your sandals crunch on gravel as you walk toward the communal well. Others are already there, women balancing jars, an old man with a stooped back waiting for his turn. You nod to them and lower your own jug, listening to the splash as it breaks the surface below. As you haul it up, you notice the sky is streaked with pale pink, and smoke from distant hearths rises like faint banners. A boy nearby is talking about soldiers he saw yesterday, their shields shining, their voices laughing in a tongue he didn't recognize. You don't correct him. Children collect stories like pebbles, bright and many, whether or not they fit together. On the way back, you pass the baker's small shop. The front is open to the street, and the first loaves are already cooling on wooden boards. You have only a few coins left from yesterday's market, but you spend one on a still warm roll. The crust flakes into your palm as you break it, the steam carrying the comforting smell of wheat. You chew slowly, feeling the rough grain between your teeth, thinking of the fields that gave this bread and the labor that brought it here. As you walk, you see signs of the empire's restless heart, even here. A courier gallops past on a foaming horse, splashing mud across your hem. He doesn't look back. Behind him, the road stretches south toward distant garrisons and north toward the hills, where rumors of rebellion have been whispering through traders for months. You've heard those whispers too, in the murmurs of men at the tavern, in the sighs of women who send sons away, with no guarantee of return. The wars are not a single event. They are a constant current, and you are a leaf floating along, whether you wish it or not. Later, when the sun climbs, you return to your patch of land beyond the walls. The soil there is stubborn, but you know its moods. You stoop and break clumps with your hands, feeling the grit work its way into the lines of your palms. Your neighbor calls out, asking if you heard the latest. Another tax levy, another call for supplies. You answer without looking up because the news is no surprise. It has always been this way. A soldier needs bread, a smith needs iron, a farmer must grow, must give, must endure. By midday the light is harsh, and you rest beneath a crooked olive tree. The cicadas hum, and for a moment the world feels suspended until a distant horn blows. It is faint, but you hear it, and so do others in the fields. Faces turn, hands still on their tools, waiting. Sometimes it is only a signal from one patrol to another, but sometimes it means movement, marching, upheaval. You hold your breath until another sound follows, laughter from a group of children chasing each other along the road. Relief loosens your shoulders, and you go back to your work. In the afternoon, you carry your harvest toward the storehouse near the river. The path is lined with stones worn smooth by generations of feet. You pass a group of women washing clothes, their chatter soft and rhythmic, punctuated by the slap of wet cloth against rock. One of them sings a lullaby as she works, and for a moment you imagine your own mother's voice, long gone now, soothing you in the dark. At the storehouse, a clerk sits behind a rough table, counting sacks and jotting marks on a wax tablet. You set your small offering beside others, aware of his sharp eyes measuring weight, quality, worth. When he nods, you exhale in relief. There is no room for generosity here. Every grain must be accounted for, every bundle taxed or recorded, because the legions are always hungry and the empire always watching. Evening draws near. You head back, feet sore, shoulders aching. The road is busier now. A pair of soldiers in dusty cloaks, a traveling peddler singing about ribbons and dyes, a cart laden with amphorae of wine bound for some officer's table. You pause to let them pass, feeling small in the flow of empire, but also steady. You belong to this rhythm as much as anyone. The potters, the smiths, the children darting between carts, the old woman selling herbs by the roadside. When you reach your home, the lamp is already lit. Your wife is kneading dough, her hands moving with practiced ease. The children chatter about some game they invented, tossing pebbles in a pattern only they understand. You smile faintly and set down your tools, washing your hands in a basin near the door. The water is warm, scented with rosemary, a small luxury she has saved for you. Supper is simple: lentils, bread, a drizzle of oil. You eat slowly, letting the day unwind from your muscles. Outside, the sounds of the town soften. A donkey brays somewhere, then falls silent. You lean back, listening to your youngest hum a tune he picked up from a passing merchant. The notes are uneven but sweet. As night settles again, you step outside to breathe in the cool air. Stars prickle the dark sky, ancient and unmoved by empires. Somewhere far beyond your sight, wars rage on. But here, in this quiet moment, you feel the weight of the day lifting, replaced by a steady calm. You know tomorrow will bring the same labor, the same uncertainty, the same quiet acts of endurance. You are an ordinary Roman, living through endless wars, and yet you live. Night holds you gently, but dawn always comes. You wake before the cockerel, your eyes still heavy, your body reluctant. The air inside your house is cool, and the straw mat rustles as you push yourself upright. For a few heartbeats, you sit in stillness, listening to the faint drip of water from a clay jar, the quiet breathing of your family. The wars feel distant in this hushed moment, but you know they shape every heartbeat of your life. You step outside and watch the first light break over the rooftops. Across the narrow street, Marcus is already awake, crouched near his doorway, sharpening a blade, not for war, but for pruning vines. He nods to you, eyes tired yet steady. You return the gesture and walk on, sandals whispering against the packed earth. The town stirs slowly. You hear the rattle of shutters opening, the creak of a cart axle as someone pushes toward the market. As you make your way along the road, you catch sight of an old milestone at the junction, its letters worn but still proud. A measure of distance to places you will never see. Each name carved into the stone feels like a story half heard. Provinces where armies march, where walls rise and fall, where ordinary people like you patch roofs and tend goats while history rumbles past. You rest your hand on the cool surface for a moment, wondering about those distant lives. Beyond the milestone, the fields wait. The soil is dark with dew, the air alive with the buzz of insects and the coo of doves on the city wall. You stoop to your work, weeding, loosening earth, feeling the sun grow stronger on your back. Your hands know the rhythm without thought, and your mind wanders. You think of that day years ago when soldiers camped nearby, how the whole village watched them march at dawn, their standards lifted high, the morning light catching on bronze. For weeks afterward, you and the others found scraps they left behind. Broken arrow shafts, discarded sandals, a dented helmet that became a child's toy. Today the war seems farther away, yet you know it is only an illusion. News travels with the caravans, whispers carried by drovers and traders. A merchant from the south passes through, his cart laden with pottery. He pauses to drink from the stream near your field and speaks of a rebellion in a border province, of roads choked with refugees, of soldiers conscripting oxen to haul siege engines. You listen quietly, nodding as though these things are remote, though in your heart you feel the familiar tightening, a sense that life here is always one rumor away from upheaval. By midday, the sun is high, and you find yourself in the shade of a half-fallen wall, eating a crust of bread saved from breakfast. The wall belonged to a villa long abandoned, its stones now home to lizards and moss. You run your hand along the rough surface, imagining the people who once lived there, wealthy perhaps, with slaves and feasts and music echoing from painted halls. Did they feel safe in their time? Did they, too, hear distant wars and wonder if those battles would reach them? After a brief rest, you return to your field, but your thoughts drift further. You picture the vast roads stretching from here to the sea, lined with mile markers and patrol stations, leading to cities you have only heard described. You imagine yourself traveling them, carrying grain or wool, your pack heavy, your feet sore, yet your eyes filled with new sights. Then you shake the thought away. Travel is dangerous, and you have responsibilities here. Still, the thought lingers like a faint breeze. Toward late afternoon, clouds gather. A soft rumble of thunder rolls over the hills. You welcome the promise of rain. It will ease the toil of watering. But you also know sudden storms can ruin a crop. You gather your tools and head back toward the village, moving quickly as the wind rises. Along the way, you pass the blacksmith's shop, where the rhythmic clang of hammer on iron rings out into the street. He glances up, sweat on his brow, and nods before plunging a glowing blade into the trough with a hiss. That blade might be a plowshare, or it might be a short sword destined for a soldier's hand. You do not ask. The first raindrops fall as you reach your door. Inside, your wife is mending a cloak, her needle flashing in the dim light. The children sit on the floor, drawing shapes in the dust with their fingers. You tell her of the merchant's news, and she presses her lips together but says nothing. Words of worry are wasted. You both know what you know, and still the bread must be baked, the children clothed. As evening settles, you share a modest meal, barley stew thickened with a handful of beans, the last of the figs from yesterday's market. The storm has passed, leaving the air cool and fresh. You eat in companionable silence, the only sounds, the scrape of wooden spoons and the crackle of the fire. Later, you step outside once more. The street is quiet, the puddles reflecting the first stars. A neighbor hums softly while bringing in his goats. Somewhere distant, a watchtower horn blows a low, mournful note. You stand still, letting the night settle around you, feeling the day's labor in your shoulders, the weight of empire in your thoughts. The wars have not touched your door today, but you know they continue, shaping the prices you pay, the taxes you owe, the future your children will inherit. As you return inside, you glance one last time at the sky. The stars seem brighter now, as if reminding you of the countless nights they have watched over countless lives like yours. You lie down on the straw mat, close your eyes, and breathe deeply, feeling the warmth of your family nearby. The lamp flickers once and fades, and you let the rhythm of the night draw you toward sleep, carrying with it the hum of distant battles and the steady pulse of ordinary life. The next morning begins with the distant call of gulls, though the sea is days away. Traders bring their cries with them, voices that rise above the hum of daily life. You open your eyes to faint light seeping through the shutters and feel the familiar ache in your arms from yesterday's work. A rooster crows somewhere near the forum, and the day begins before you even step outside. You sit up slowly, savoring the quiet. Your children are still curled together, their breath soft and even. You pull on your tunic, the fabric rough but comforting, and step into the street. The night's rain has left the air clean, and the stones glisten faintly under the early sun. A cart rumbles past, drawn by two weary oxen, its driver muttering a tune that drifts and fades. You follow the road toward the market, carrying an empty basket and a mind full of calculations. How far the coins will stretch, which traders might be generous today. The market is already alive. A woman from the hills arranges bunches of herbs, their scent sharp and green. A potter sets out fresh clay bowls, their surfaces etched with simple designs. You pause at a stall where a man sharpens knives on a whetstone, his hands sure and practiced. He nods at you without breaking rhythm, the scrape of stone on metal steady as breathing. You move on, drawn by the call of a fishmonger who claims to have eels from the river, fat and ready for the pan. You cannot afford them, but you linger a moment, watching him work. In the corner of the market, near the shadow of a crumbling arch, stands an old woman with a tray of figs. Her face is lined like old parchment, her voice low as she tells you these are from her own tree, sweet as honey. You trade a few small coins, and she slips an extra one into your hand with a wink, murmuring that ordinary folk must help each other when the times are hard. You thank her softly, feeling a warmth that lingers longer than the taste of the fruit. As you turn back toward home, a cluster of men gathers near the well, listening to a stranger. He is dusty, his sandals worn thin, his voice low but urgent. He speaks of new levies, of distant victories bought with heavy cost, of men conscripted from farms like yours. The group shifts uneasily, eyes darting, but no one speaks too loudly. You move on because there is work to be done, but his words follow you like shadows. At home, your wife kneels over a basket of mending, humming under her breath. You set down the figs and tell her what you heard, and she only shrugs, eyes still on the needle. "We have heard such things before," she says softly. "We will hear them again." You know she is right. The Empire has been fighting as long as you have been alive, and still the sun rises, the bread bakes, the fields demand tending. You spend the late morning repairing a section of fence where goats have pushed through. The wood is old, splintered, but you coax it back into shape with patient hands. Each stroke of the hammer feels steady, necessary, a small act of order in a world that can so easily tip into chaos. You think of Marcus again, his stories of campaigns where men marched until their feet bled, where rations were nothing but a handful of grain, where ordinary soldiers longed only for the humblest comforts of home. You wonder if any of those men still live, and if they ever think of these quiet fields. The sun climbs higher, and you pause for a meal, bread torn by hand, dipped in oil, shared with your eldest son who sits beside you in the shade. He asks questions, as children do. Why the soldiers shout when they march. Why the emperor's face is on every coin. Why people speak so many languages in the market. You answer as best you can, weaving simple truths into words that might calm his restless mind. You tell him that Rome is vast, that it stretches farther than you can imagine, and that people everywhere are just trying to live, like you. He nods slowly, chewing his bread, eyes thoughtful. In the afternoon, you carry a basket of vegetables to a neighbor who has been ill. Her courtyard is small and quiet, shaded by a single fig tree. She thanks you in a thin voice, and you sit with her for a while, listening to the wind rustle the leaves. She speaks of her son who left with the Legion months ago, who wrote once and then never again. Her eyes are far away as she speaks, and you do not interrupt. Some stories have no endings, only echoes. You return home as the sun begins to lower, the sky turning soft gold. Children play in the dusty street, tossing pebbles into a circle, their laughter carrying in the evening air. A man with a harp stands near the fountain, plucking a tune that drifts like smoke. You stop to listen, feeling the day's weight in your bones, but also a strange lightness in your chest. The music, simple as it is, reminds you that life is more than toil and taxes. At supper, you tell your family about the harpist, mimicking his tune with your voice. The children laugh, and your wife smiles faintly as she ladles out stew. You eat together, the lamplight soft and warm, the shadows deepening. Outside, the sounds of the village fade one by one until only the night insects remain, singing their ancient songs. Later, lying on your mat, you watch the glow of the lamp dance on the ceiling. You think of the day, of markets and fences, of rumors and music, of simple kindnesses shared between ordinary people. The wars are still out there, churning beyond the horizon, but here in this small world, there is a fragile peace. You close your eyes and let that peace settle into your heart, carrying you toward dreams. The following day greets you with a low mist, curling like smoke around the village roofs. The air tastes of damp earth and ash, and as you push open your door, you hear the distant rhythm of hammers from the blacksmith's shed. It is early, yet life hums softly all around you. You draw your cloak tighter against the morning chill and set off toward the fields, the ground soft beneath your sandals. On the road, you meet a group of children carrying bundles of sticks, their chatter filling the air like sparrows at dawn. They greet you shyly, then run ahead, bare feet scattering dew from the grass. You smile, thinking of your own children still asleep, their dreams untouched by the worries of supply levies and distant skirmishes. For a moment, the mist feels protective, wrapping the village in a quiet world of its own, far from any marching armies. At the edge of the fields, you pause to watch the river. Its surface is calm, though you know its currents run deep and strong. Barges move slowly along it, guided by men with long poles, their loads hidden under canvas. Grain, timber, perhaps weapons bound for some front you will never see. You imagine the river as a thread tying together countless lives, soldiers, merchants, farmers, mothers waiting by doorways. You are one of many beads on that thread, and the thought brings a strange kind of comfort. The work today is slow, careful pruning of the vines that creep along your small plot. Your hands are practiced, fingers quick to find the dead shoots, the twisted stems. As you work, you think of the seasons. The vines grow, are cut back, grow again. Wars come, peace returns, new wars begin. Life folds upon itself like layers of cloth, and still you wake, still you work. You hum softly, an old tune your father once sang in the fields, its words long forgotten, but its rhythm steady as breath. Near midday, a rider approaches along the road. His horse is lean, sweat darkening its hide. He slows only enough to shout something in Latin, words carried off by the wind. You catch fragments: conscription, supplies, north. The others in the field glance at one another, eyes wary, but no one speaks. Instead, you all return to your tasks, as if pretending not to hear might keep the words from taking root. Later, when the sun climbs higher, you share a meal under a patch of shade. A neighbor sits beside you, chewing bread and wiping his brow with the back of his hand. He speaks quietly of his brother, taken last year for a campaign far away. He sent a letter once, your neighbor says, staring at the ground. Said the cold cut deeper than swords, then nothing more. You place a hand on his shoulder, and the silence that follows is heavier than words. By afternoon, the mist has burned away, leaving the sky a clear, sharp blue. You walk back toward the village, your basket filled with vine trimmings for kindling. The road is busy now, traders leading mules, a priestess carrying offerings, a boy driving a squealing pig. You step aside to let them pass, feeling the hum of life swirl around you. A traveling storyteller has set up near the fountain, his voice rising and falling as he recounts some ancient battle, full of heroes and victories. Children gather, eyes wide, while the adults listen with half an ear, too used to such tales to be stirred. Back home, your wife is kneading dough again, her hands moving as steadily as yours in the vines. She asks about your day, and you tell her of the writer, of the neighbor's words, of the storyteller's booming voice. She nods, her face unreadable, then gestures to the stew simmering in the pot. The smell fills the house, warm and familiar. You sit with her a while, shelling beans, your fingers moving automatically as your mind drifts. In the evening, Marcus comes by with a jug of watered wine. He lowers himself onto your bench, groaning softly as his knees protest. Together you watch the street, sipping slowly, the wine thin but welcome. He talks of his youth again, marches through forests, nights under alien stars, the sound of shields locking in the dark. You listen without interrupting, feeling the weight of years in his words. "We endure," he says finally, eyes on the distance. "That is what we do." The sun dips low, painting the village in gold and shadow. Children run laughing through the streets, their voices ringing off the stone. A woman sweeps her doorway, sending a cloud of dust into the evening light. The air cools, and the first stars appear, timid at first, then bold. You breathe deeply, feeling the day slip from your shoulders. As night falls, you help your wife bring in the last of the washing, still damp but fragrant with the evening air. The children curl up on their mat, whispering secrets, giggling softly. You sit by the doorway, watching the dark settle. Somewhere beyond the hills, the wars continue. You imagine distant camps, fires flickering against tents, men staring into the flames and thinking of homes like yours. Perhaps they think of their own children, their own vineyards, their own markets. The thought makes you feel less alone. You close your eyes, letting the night sounds lull you. A dog barking, the distant call of an owl, the soft murmur of your wife humming as she tidies the last of the day's clutter. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of the village. Another day has passed in the shadow of endless wars, and still, you are here. The morning comes with a softness that surprises you. A pale haze lingers over the village, and the usual clamor of early carts is muted. You wake slowly, listening to the rhythm of breathing around you. The children, your wife, even the faint scurry of a mouse in the corner. The wars are far from your door at this hour. All you know is the smell of last night's ashes and the faint light seeping through the shutters. You step outside and feel the cool damp of dawn. The street is empty except for a lone shepherd driving his small flock toward the hills. His staff taps gently on the stones, a hollow sound that echoes down the narrow way. You watch him disappear around a bend, his figure swallowed by mist, and you think of how life pushes forward in 1,000 quiet acts, even while distant borders burn. The first task today is simple: mending a break in the irrigation channel that feeds your small plot. You gather tools, the wooden spade and the basket of stones, and walk out to the fields. The ground is soft beneath your sandals, and you take your time, noticing details you often miss. The way dew gathers on wildflowers, the faint hum of bees waking in the hedges, the distant bark of a dog from some unseen farmstead. At the channel, you crouch and begin your work. Water trickles steadily, carrying bits of silt that stain your fingers. You shape the earth, pack the stones, smooth the edges with practiced hands. This is the kind of labor that asks for patience but little thought. And so your mind drifts. You think of the writers who passed days ago, of Marcus's quiet words, of the storyteller's voice booming over the fountain. You think of how the empire feels, both immense and fragile, like the channel before you, holding back so much with nothing more than careful hands. When the repair is done, you sit back on your heels and watch the water flow. It catches the light, bending it, carrying it onward. You imagine that same water traveling downstream, feeding other fields, filling other pitchers, weaving lives together silently. You take a sip from your own flask, the taste cool and clean, and breathe out slowly. Mid-morning finds you at the edge of the village, helping Marcus haul a stubborn cartwheel from a ditch. The old man's laughter is rough but genuine as you both strain against the weight. Even a wheel grows tired, he jokes, wiping sweat from his brow. You chuckle softly, feeling the bond of shared effort. Together you right the cart, brush off the dust, and send it on its way. On your way back, you pass a Roman official standing beneath a faded awning. He calls out orders to two scribes who scribble on wax tablets. A small crowd hovers nearby, restless. You pause at a distance, hearing words like quota and levy and frontier. The official's voice is clipped, efficient, but the faces of the villagers tell the deeper story. Tight mouths, worried brows, hands wringing cloth. You move on before the mood sours further. By midday, the sun burns through the haze and the village hums with activity. You stop at the well, waiting your turn as a woman sings softly to her baby, rocking him against her hip. The song is old, a lullaby everyone seems to know, and you find yourself humming along. When it is your turn, you lower your jug, listening to the echo of the splash far below, then haul it up slowly, careful not to spill. Carrying the water home, you catch sight of soldiers resting by the shade of an olive tree. They are young, laughing, tossing dice, their helmets set aside. For a moment, they seem no different from the boys who play in the street, except for the scars on their hands and the way their eyes scan every movement in the distance. One of them notices you and nods. You nod back, feeling a strange kinship with these wanderers who live between peace and war. In the afternoon, your wife asks for your help repairing the roof. You climb the ladder, feeling the sun on your neck, and hand her reeds and twine as she weaves them into the thatch. From this height, you can see the village laid out like a child's drawing. Narrow streets, low walls, patches of green fields beyond. Beyond that, the distant hills fade into haze. Somewhere past those hills, banners rise and clash, but from here the world feels still, balanced, suspended in golden light. When the work is done, you sit on the roof for a while, legs dangling over the edge, watching the slow rhythm of life below. A boy chases a chicken across a courtyard. A potter's apprentice carries a stack of clay slabs, careful not to drop them. A pair of old men argue good-naturedly about the price of olives, their voices rising and falling like a familiar song. You smile faintly, feeling the sun's warmth sink deep into your skin. Evening draws near and you climb down, washing your hands in the basin by the door. Supper is simple again, but the figs from the old woman's tree are sweet, and the bread still warm from the oven. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, feeling the day's work settle into your bones like a pleasant weight. As dusk deepens, Marcus's voice carries from his doorway, singing a tune from his Legion days. The melody drifts over the rooftops, soft and mournful, but strangely comforting. You listen, leaning against your doorframe, eyes on the first stars pricking through the darkening sky. The wars go on, yes, but here is a song, a simple human voice cutting through time. When night falls fully, you lie down beside your family, The lamp flickering low. Outside, the crickets begin their chorus, steady and timeless. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, letting the day fade. In your dreams, the river flows endlessly, carrying away fears, bringing back quiet mornings and soft evenings, as if the world itself whispers, "Endure, endure, endure." The days have a way of blending together, each one carrying the faint echoes of the last. You wake to the sound of a neighbor's mule braying, the creak of a cartwheel over stones, the faraway call of a sentry changing watch. The lamp has burned out in the night, leaving only the pale blue of early light spilling across the floor. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your shoulders from yesterday's labor, and rise slowly so as not to wake the children. Outside, the air holds a hint of warmth, a promise that summer is near. The streets are already alive with soft movements, an old woman sweeping her threshold, a boy carrying a basket nearly his size, two dogs circling each other in a playful chase. You step aside for a farmer driving a pair of stubborn goats, their hooves clattering against the stones. He nods in greeting, and you return it, both of you caught in the quiet pact of early risers who share the world before the day truly begins. Today you walk toward the far side of the village, where the road dips down to the olive groves. The trees stand like old sentinels, their gnarled trunks twisted and scarred by time, yet still alive with silver leaves that shimmer when the breeze stirs. You run your hand along the bark of one, feeling the grooves, imagining all it has seen. Soldiers passing in columns, merchants leading camels and mules, priests with incense swinging in brass burners. You set to work gathering fallen branches, useful for kindling. The grove is quiet, but never truly silent. There is the rustle of leaves, the faint hum of insects, the distant cry of a hawk. You move slowly, letting your thoughts wander. You think of how each branch, each olive, has grown despite storms, droughts, and years of unseen wars. Life does not stop. It adapts, endures. By mid-morning, you carry your bundle back along the road. A cart approaches, bearing crates marked with the seal of the Legion. The driver reins in his horses as you step aside, and you catch a glimpse of spears and helmets stacked neatly among sacks of grain. The sight tightens something in your chest, but you remind yourself, the soldiers need food, the villages need trade, and the river of empire carries everyone along, whether they wish it or not. Back home, your wife is preparing to bake, the hearth bright with flame. You set down the branches and help her carry water from the jug to the dough trough. The smell of yeast drifts through the house, warm and alive. You knead alongside her, hands pressing, folding, turning, as though shaping something more than bread. She hums a tune, low and steady, and for a while the world feels small and safe. After the loaves are set to rise, you step outside again. A stranger is in the street, a traveling seller with bright fabrics draped over his arm. He speaks quickly, offering dyes, beads, small mirrors from far-off provinces. You have little to spare, but you let your eyes wander over the colors, deep blues, warm reds, threads glinting like sunlight on water. He smiles, sensing your longing, and presses a scrap of cloth into your hand. "For the child," he says softly, "a gift." You nod, surprised, the kindness settling over you like a gentle rain. In the afternoon, you return to the fields to tend the beans. The sun is high, the air thick with the scent of soil and growing things. A neighbor sings as he works, his voice carrying over the furrows, verses about rivers and distant cities. You find yourself joining in on the refrain. your own voice rough but steady. Together, the words weave a net of shared labor, catching the hours as they pass. You pause to drink from your flask and watch a line of ants carrying crumbs toward their nest. Their small, tireless procession reminds you of the endless lines of men who march away to war, each one carrying a burden, each one part of something larger than himself. You whisper a quiet wish that they all find their way home. Later, as the sun leans westward, you spot Marcus near the road, bent over a broken wheelbarrow. You go to him without a word, lifting one end while he steadies the other. Together you push it back to his yard, the two of you moving slowly, breathing hard but smiling at the absurdity of it all. "It's always something," he mutters, and you nod, knowing he speaks not only of the wheelbarrow, but of life itself. Evening approaches. You return home to the smell of fresh bread cooling on wooden boards. Your wife hands you a loaf, still warm, and you break it open, the steam carrying the simple, comforting scent that fills the room. The children crowd close, their eyes bright as you share pieces, each bite grounding you in the present moment. When the sun dips below the hills, the village glows in the soft amber of oil lamps. You sit outside with your family, watching the last light fade. Somewhere a flute begins to play, its melody wandering through the streets like a gentle ghost. You close your eyes and let the notes wash over you, soothing, timeless. As night deepens, you carry the children to their mat, pulling a worn blanket over them. Their faces are calm in sleep, untouched by the worries that fill your own mind. You sit a while longer by the doorway, listening to the distant murmur of voices, the creak of timbers as the village settles in for the night. The wars are out there, yes, but here in this small circle of lamplight, there is peace enough to close your eyes and rest. You wake to the sound of rain on tiles, a steady, rhythmic tapping that feels almost like a lullaby. The light in the room is dim, filtered through thick clouds. You sit up slowly, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, and listen. Beyond your door, the village moves at a slower pace than usual. Rain softens everything, even worries, even memories of distant wars. When you step outside, the air is cool and rich with the scent of wet earth. Water gathers in the grooves of the stone road, and you watch it ripple as a dog trots by, splashing little arcs with its paws. A child runs after it, laughing, hair plastered to his forehead. You tighten your cloak and begin your walk toward the granary, your sandals slapping softly against the damp ground. At the granary, you help unload sacks of barley from a mule cart. The sacks are heavy, but your arms know this work. You lift, carry, stack, the rhythm steady, the effort shared by others who nod to you silently. Outside, the rain eases into a mist, and the scent of grain fills your lungs, warm, familiar, ancient. You think of all the hands that have done this same work, year after year, feeding villages, feeding armies, feeding life itself. When the cart is empty, you linger a moment under the granary's awning. Across the road, a woman is spinning wool, her fingers moving deftly as she shapes something out of nothing. The spindle hums, a gentle sound, and you find yourself mesmerized by the simple skill. For a moment, you imagine her work in the context of soldiers far away. Tunics woven by hands like hers, blankets warming men who will never know her name. You wonder if she thinks of them as she spins. Later, you return home to find your wife sitting near the hearth, patching a tear in your son's tunic. She glances up, smiles faintly, and asks about the granary. You tell her of the barley, of the woman spinning wool, of the way the rain softened the air. She listens without interruption, nodding, and you feel grateful for the small space you share together. Solid, steady, enduring. The rain stops by midday, leaving the village wrapped in a fresh, earthy scent. You walk to the fields to check the furrows. Water glistens in shallow pools, and tiny green shoots peek through the soil. You crouch, running your fingers gently over the tender leaves, feeling their fragility and their determination. These plants know nothing of levees or borders. They only reach for the sun. Nearby, a neighbor tends to his own rows. He wipes his brow, though the air is cool, and says quietly, "They say the northern road is closed now. Bandits." His tone is calm, but his eyes betray worry. You nod, understanding that a closed road means merchants will come less often, prices will rise, and rumors will grow. Yet you both turn back to your work, because what else is there to do? As afternoon deepens, you carry a small bundle of greens back to the village. Along the way, you see a group of children playing in puddles, their laughter ringing through the narrow street. One splashes you by accident, eyes wide in apology, but you smile and ruffle his hair, telling him to keep playing. You remember being that small once, chasing rainwater as if it were treasure, unaware of anything beyond the moment. At home, you share the greens with your wife, who sprinkles salt from a precious little pouch. The meal is simple but filling. While you eat, your eldest child tells you about a carved toy he saw at the market, an ox on wheels, painted red. He describes it with such excitement that you can almost see it, and you promise to look for it next time you have a few spare coins. His eyes light up, and for a heartbeat, the weight of the world seems lighter. After the meal, you sit by the doorway, mending a strap on your sandal. The sky is clearing now, streaked with orange and gold as the sun dips lower. You hear distant voices, neighbors calling good night, the soft bray of a donkey, the rustle of leaves as a breeze moves through. The village feels alive in a quiet way, pulsing with a rhythm older than the empire itself. As evening settles, Marcus arrives with a handful of dates he somehow managed to trade for. He sits beside you, sharing them out, each bite sticky and sweet. He talks softly of seasons long past, of comrades he hasn't seen in years, of the way the world keeps turning no matter how many battles are fought. You listen, nodding occasionally, letting his voice carry you along like the steady flow of the river. Darkness comes gradually, the stars appearing one by one. Lamps flicker to life in doorways, casting golden pools on the stone streets. You help your wife bank the hearth for the night, then step outside one last time. The air is cool against your skin, and the sky stretches vast and unbroken above you. Somewhere beyond those stars, beyond the hills, men still march, still fight. But here, in this moment, there is peace enough. You return inside, lying down beside your family. The faint smell of rain still clings to your clothes. The children murmur in their sleep, and your wife's breathing is steady. You close your eyes, feeling the soft pull of slumber, knowing tomorrow will bring its own labors and its own quiet blessings. And so you drift, heart calm, mind resting, carried by the simple truth that even in a world shadowed by endless wars, ordinary life goes on. The rooster calls before dawn, its cry slicing through the last veil of night. You wake with a slow stretch, the stiffness in your back reminding you of yesterday's labors. The room is dark, but not silent. You hear the soft breathing of your children, the occasional crackle from the hearth's embers. Outside, a low wind stirs, carrying with it the faint scent of wet clay and distant smoke. You rise quietly, stepping over a wooden toy left near the doorway, and push the shutter open. The village lies hushed beneath a silver glow, the moon still lingering in the western sky. For a few moments, you simply stand there, letting the cool air wash over your face. Somewhere in the distance, a watchman coughs, his voice echoing down a stone alleyway. The wars are far off, yet their presence feels like a shadow even in this hour. You decide to visit the outer road before the day truly begins. Slinging a small sack over your shoulder, you walk past silent homes, past the temple steps where a stray cat sleeps curled on a worn statue's feet. The road stretches ahead, lined with poplars whose leaves tremble in the early breeze. You think of all who have traveled this way. Traders with heavy packs, soldiers marching in perfect time, refugees seeking a place to rest. Their footsteps are gone, but the road remembers. At the edge of the fields, you kneel to inspect the soil. The rain from yesterday has left it dark and pliable, a good sign for the next planting. You dig your fingers in, letting the earth crumble in your palm. This soil has seen centuries of harvests and battles, and still it gives. You whisper a quiet thanks, though no one is there to hear. The sun lifts slowly, brushing the hills with pale gold. You make your way back toward the village, pausing to watch a flock of birds wheel overhead. Their wings catch the light, flashing white and gray. They move as one, rising and dipping, a living pattern across the sky. You feel a pang of longing. What would it be like to rise above all of this, to see the world not as scattered villages and tense borders, but as a single, endless expanse? Back in the village, the streets are waking. A baker opens his shutters, the smell of fresh bread rolling out like a promise. You stop briefly, trading a few coins for a small loaf still warm from the oven. He smiles, flour dusting his beard, and wishes you peace for the day ahead. You nod, tearing off a piece of bread as you walk, savoring the soft center and the crisp crust. Mid-morning brings work in the olive grove again. You and Marcus share the labor, shaking branches so the ripe fruits fall into the nets below. The thud of olives against cloth becomes a steady rhythm, almost like a drumbeat. Between tasks, Marcus talks softly of his younger days when he marched north under a sky heavy with snow. You listen, imagining the frost on his beard, the weight of his shield, the endless white stretching ahead. He pauses, staring at the ground, then laughs quietly. "And yet," he says, "I came back to olives." By midday, the nets are heavy, and you both carry them back toward the press. The streets are busier now. Children dart between stalls. A goat protests loudly as it's herded away from a tempting basket of figs, and a group of merchants argues over the price of salt. You feel the pulse of life all around you, vibrant and steady. At the press, you help turn the great wooden beam, watching the dark oil trickle out slowly. Its rich scent fills the air, clinging to your skin and clothes. A woman collects the oil in clay jars, her movements careful, deliberate. You hand her another jar, feeling the weight of the day's work in your arms, and she thanks you with a small nod. This oil will light lamps, flavor meals, soothe wounds, 100 small ways of keeping life moving. Later, you return home, where your wife is rinsing cloth by the basin. She tells you the neighbor's daughter is to be married next week, and for a moment, the shadow of war lifts entirely. You imagine the wedding, a simple feast, a circle of dancers under the stars, laughter that carries late into the night. You promise her you will help prepare, and she smiles, a rare, genuine light in her eyes. As evening falls, you sit by your doorway with the children, teaching them a game you once played as a boy. They draw lines in the dust, moving small stones in patterns, laughing when you pretend to lose. Their laughter is music, sweet and unguarded. Above, the sky turns deep blue, the first stars winking into view. You tell them the names of those stars, stories you remember from elders long gone, tales of hunters and queens immortalized in the heavens. Night deepens and the village quiets. A breeze stirs the olive trees, carrying the faint scent of oil and earth. You close your eyes for a moment, listening. No marching feet, no horns, only the soft cadence of crickets and the occasional murmur of a neighbor bidding goodnight. Inside, the lamp burns low as your wife folds away the day's work. You lie down on your mat, the children already asleep, their faces peaceful. You breathe deeply, feeling the steady rise and fall of your chest, the calm that seeps into your bones after a day well lived. Beyond the hills, the empire churns, but here, in this quiet room, you find a pocket of timeless peace. The next day dawns with a soft gray light, the kind that blurs edges and makes the village look half-dreamt. You rise slowly, feeling the pleasant ache in your muscles, the residue of yesterday's work. The coals in the hearth still glow faintly, and you stir them with a stick, coaxing a small flame that fills the room with gentle warmth. Outside, the air carries the smell of distant rain, though the sky is dry for now. You walk down the narrow street, sandals brushing against pebbles, and hear the faint sound of a lyre from somewhere unseen. Someone is already awake, already playing, letting music weave into the morning like a blessing. You head first to the well. The square is quiet, only a few early risers moving about their tasks. A young man lowers a bucket, humming softly, then offers you a nod. You lower your own rope, feeling the rope's coarse fibers against your palms. The bucket splashes far below, and when you pull it up, the water is cool and clear. You take a slow drink, savoring the way it settles into your chest, like calm itself. As you return, you notice a small group gathered near the steps of the temple. A priest stands with a scroll, reading a proclamation in a measured voice. The words drift to you: new levies of grain, a call for volunteers, praise for recent victories. Some in the crowd listen intently. Others stare at the ground, their faces unreadable. You pause only a moment, then continue on. These announcements are a constant hum in the background of life, as regular as the rising sun. Mid-morning finds you in the company of your eldest child, walking the path to the small vineyard near the hills. He skips beside you, asking endless questions. Why the vines twist as they grow, why the hills look blue from far away, why some birds sing and others remain silent. You answer what you can, smiling at his curiosity. You tell him the hills are blue because the air itself softens their color, that the vines twist to reach light, that some birds simply listen instead of sing. He nods, eyes wide, storing each answer like a treasure. At the vineyard, you show him how to check the vines, how to trim gently, how to leave the healthiest shoots. His small hands imitate yours, clumsy but eager. Together you work in silence, except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a crow overhead. Time seems to slow in that quiet space, the wars and rumors fading to nothing but distant echoes. By noon, you sit in the shade of a low stone wall, sharing bread and a fig with your son. He leans against your shoulder, the warmth of him grounding you. You tell him of Marcus's stories, of soldiers who marched beyond mountains, of cities larger than he can imagine. eyes grow thoughtful. Will I go there someday? He asks. You look out across the fields, choosing your words carefully. Perhaps, you say, but there is no shame in staying, in tending what is yours. The world needs both. He nods slowly, seeming to accept this truth. On the way back, you pass a group of women washing clothes by the river. They laugh as they work, their voices rising and falling like the water itself. One waves at you, teasing about the boy at your side, how he looks like a miniature version of you. You smile and wave back, feeling a rare lightness in your chest. Back in the village, the square is livelier now. A merchant calls out the virtues of his spices, holding up small jars that glitter in the sunlight. Another demonstrates a new kind of clay pot, its lid shaped cleverly to catch steam. You watch for a while, letting the noise wash over you, then purchase a small pinch of salt to bring home. It costs more than it used to, but you know it will stretch many meals. In the afternoon, you repair a section of the roof with Marcus. The old man's hands are rough, his movements slow but sure. Together you weave reeds and patch gaps, talking little but sharing a comfortable silence. Now and then he sighs or hums an old tune. You find yourself joining in, your voices blending, carrying across the rooftops to anyone who cares to listen. Evening draws near, the sun turning the stone walls to amber. You carry water again, feeling the weight of the jug against your hip, and pass by a group of children playing with a hoop in the street. They cheer as it rolls, clattering against a wall. For a moment you think of the toy your son described, the red ox on wheels, and you silently promise again that you'll find a way to bring it home. At supper, the family gathers close around the small table. The bread is dipped in oil from yesterday's pressing, and the stew is flavored with the salt you bought. The children chatter about their day. Your wife smiles faintly as she listens, and you find yourself smiling too, despite the tiredness in your bones. Later, you sit alone by the doorway, watching the last colors of sunset fade into twilight. The sky is deep purple now, a few bright stars scattered like distant fires. You think of the temple proclamation, of the endless call for men and grain, of the way the empire stretches beyond what you can see. But here, in this quiet evening, those thoughts feel far away, softened by the rhythm of ordinary life. As night falls, you lie down beside your family once more. The sounds of the village drift to you. Someone closing shutters, a dog settling with a low sigh, the faint strains of a flute from a nearby home. You close your eyes, letting those sounds weave into your dreams. Whatever tomorrow brings, you will rise and work, and life will move forward. Even in a world shaped by endless wars, you find your own small piece. Dawn creeps in slowly, painting the walls with pale light. You open your eyes to the soft murmur of morning, a rooster somewhere in the distance, the shuffle of feet on the street, the rustle of cloth as your wife folds a blanket. The room smells faintly of last night's embers, and for a moment you simply lie still, letting the rhythm of life soak into you. When you rise, the air is cool, a hint of dew still clinging to the stones outside. You step into the street and notice the faint haze of dust hanging low. The road must have seen heavy use in the night. A neighbor passing by explains in a low voice that a detachment of soldiers moved through before dawn, their boots pounding the earth like drums. You picture them marching, faces set, eyes forward, carrying with them news, orders, perhaps fear. Yet now they are gone, leaving only footprints and stirred dust behind. Your own day begins at the market square, where vendors are setting up stalls. The smell of herbs and fresh bread mingles in the cool air. You pause to help an elderly woman lift her basket of vegetables onto her table, and she thanks you with a warm smile, pressing a small onion into your hand as a token of gratitude. It is these gestures, you think, that stitch life together, the quiet kindnesses that outlast any battle. As the sun climbs, you return to the vineyard with your tools slung over your shoulder. The vines are heavy with leaves now, and you move carefully, pruning what must be pruned, tying wayward shoots. Your fingers are sure, and the rhythm of the work calms you. In the distance, you hear the sound of a hammer against an anvil, the blacksmith at his forge, shaping metal that might become a plow or a spear. You do not know and do not wish to guess. Marcus joins you mid-morning, carrying a flask of watered wine. He hands it to you without a word, and you drink, the liquid cool and slightly sour. Together you work, side by side, speaking little. Now and then he breaks the silence with a story, his voice low and even. He tells of a time when a great storm nearly destroyed the vineyards, when the river rose so high that people fled to the hills. We thought it was the end, he says, but the vines grew back. They always do. You nod, understanding without needing to reply. At midday, the two of you sit beneath an olive tree, sharing bread and olives. The shade is deep, the air still. A cicada drones somewhere close by, its steady hum like a heartbeat. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the rough bark against your back, tasting salt on your tongue, and letting the moment stretch. On the walk back to the village, you pass a small shrine by the roadside. Someone has left a handful of wildflowers there, their petals bright against the stone. You pause to add a sprig of olive leaves from your pocket, bowing your head briefly. These small offerings, you think, are not for the gods alone, but for the living, for the memory of those lost and the hope of those still here. The afternoon is filled with small tasks: patching a worn section of fence, sweeping the dirt from the doorstep, helping your wife mend a tear in the roof cloth. Each task is simple, yet together they keep the home standing, keep the family fed, keep the rhythm steady. Outside, you hear children's laughter, high and carefree, chasing a rolling hoop down the street. You watch them for a while, smiling at their joy, their utter lack of worry about anything beyond the next turn. As evening approaches, the smell of supper fills the house. Lentils simmering slowly, bread warming on the hearth. You sit with your family around the low table, sharing the meal in companionable silence, broken only by the children's chatter. Your eldest proudly shows you the small carving he made from a bit of soft wood, a bird with outstretched wings. It is rough, uneven, but beautiful in its own way. You praise him, and he beams, the light of the hearth catching in his eyes. After supper, you step outside to find Marcus waiting with a small jug. Together, you sit on the low wall near the olive grove, sipping the wine slowly as the last rays of sunlight stretch long across the fields. You talk of nothing urgent, of weather, of vines, of how the stars seem brighter after rain. The quiet between words is comfortable, filled with the shared knowledge that you are both still here, still standing. The night settles in gently, crickets beginning their chorus. In the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You look up at the sky, the stars scattered thick and bright, and you feel that same sense of connection you have felt so many nights before, that you are part of something vast and ancient, something that has endured countless storms and will endure countless more. When you return inside, the children are already asleep, curled beneath their blankets. Your wife hums softly as she clears the last of the dishes. You lie down beside her, the cool night air brushing your face, and close your eyes. The village around you breathes in the dark, steady, alive, at peace for now. Tomorrow, there will be more work, more worries, more small joys. But tonight, there is rest, and in that rest, a quiet strength that no war can touch. The morning light wakes you slowly, filtering through the shutters in pale bands. You hear the soft rustle of cloth as your wife stirs, the tiny sigh of your youngest as she turns in her sleep. For a while you remain still, feeling the weight of the blanket, the warmth of the mat, the steady beat of your own heart. Outside, a faint breeze carries the smell of damp earth and distant smoke. You rise carefully, so as not to wake the children, and step out into the street. The day begins quietly. The sky is a soft wash of color, blue melting into pink and gold. A neighbor carries a basket of herbs, nodding in greeting as she passes. A dog trots by with a bone clamped in its jaws, tail wagging. The ordinary beauty of it all makes you pause, breathing deeply, letting your shoulders relax. Your first task is at the riverbank, where the irrigation channels need clearing. You take your wooden spade and walk past the olive grove, the dew still clinging to the leaves. Birds dart between branches, and somewhere in the distance, a donkey brays. The river is calm today, its surface smooth enough to reflect the rising sun. You kneel by the channel and begin to scoop out silt and debris, the movement repetitive, soothing. The water runs clearer with each stroke, a quiet reward for your effort. As you work, you think of the soldiers who once built these channels, men long gone but whose labor still shapes your days. You wonder if they too thought of their families while they worked, if they too longed for peace in a world that never seemed to rest. The thought lingers as you stand and stretch, feeling the ache in your back, but also a sense of pride. On your way home, you stop by a field where Marcus is mending a broken gate. He waves you over, handing you one end of a wooden beam. Together, you lift it into place, driving pegs through with a mallet. The sound is sharp in the morning air, each strike echoing across the open land. When the gate is secure, Marcus wipes his brow and says softly, "They say another levy is coming." You look at him, waiting. More grain, maybe men? No one knows yet. His eyes are tired, but his hands remain steady. You nod slowly, knowing there is little either of you can do but keep working. Back at home, your wife is kneading dough, her hands moving rhythmically. You join her, folding the soft mass, feeling its warmth and life. The children chatter in the corner, playing a game with stones, their laughter bright and unguarded. For a moment, the worries of levies and wars feel distant, muffled by the simple intimacy of shared work. When the bread is set to rise, you take your eldest to the village edge to gather firewood. The path leads through a stand of cypress trees, their tall forms swaying gently. You show him how to choose branches, dry but not brittle, strong enough to burn steadily. He listens carefully, proud to help, his small arms straining under the weight of each bundle. You smile at his determination, feeling a quiet surge of hope for the future. Midday finds you both resting in the shade, sharing a crust of bread and a handful of olives. The sun is warm on your face, the earth firm beneath you. You tell your son about the old stories your father told you, of heroes who traveled seas, of farmers who outwitted kings, of villages that endured through famine and war. His eyes widen, hungry for each word. You see yourself in him years ago, sitting at your father's knee, believing that stories could keep the darkness at bay. When you return, the village is alive with afternoon sounds, hammers ringing in the smithy, women calling to one another across courtyards, the bleating of goats being herded back from pasture. You pass the small market where a merchant from the coast is selling bright shells and bits of coral. You cannot afford much, but you trade a small measure of oil for a tiny shell, smooth and white, to give to your daughter. Her delighted smile when you hand it to her feels like a shield against every worry. As evening approaches, Marcus calls to you from his doorway. He has a small pot of honey, rare and precious, which he insists you share. You sit together, dipping bits of bread into the golden sweetness, eating slowly as the sun sets. The taste lingers on your tongue, rich and comforting. "It's the little things," Marcus murmurs, staring at the horizon. You nod, knowing he speaks a truth deeper than any proclamation. The village settles into twilight. You help your wife bring in the last of the laundry, the fabric cool and damp in your hands. The children run in circles, pretending to be charioteers, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. For a few moments you watch them, feeling both joy and a fragile ache in your chest. You want this moment to last forever, though you know it cannot. Night falls gently, the stars emerging one by one. You light a small oil lamp, its flame steady and warm. The family gathers close, your wife humming softly as she spins a bit of wool. The children drift towards sleep, their eyes heavy, their breaths slowing. You sit with them until the last one dozes off, then step outside one last time. The air is cool, the village hushed. You look up at the stars, those same points of light that guided sailors and soldiers and farmers for centuries. They are distant, but they feel like companions, constant and unchanging. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the night, and let the peace of this small moment settle deep in your bones. Tomorrow will bring its tasks, its news, its worries. But for now, you close your eyes and feel yourself anchored here, an ordinary Roman, living through extraordinary times, finding in each day a quiet strength. The next morning arrives with a cool stillness, as though the world is holding its breath. You wake to the sound of distant gulls, a rare sound this far inland, and for a moment you lie there wondering what has brought them. Perhaps a new caravan from the coast, perhaps some shift in weather you cannot yet see. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the little one curled beside you, and let your eyes adjust to the faint light spilling through the shutters. Outside, the village feels half asleep. A thin mist drapes the fields, softening the edges of every tree and wall. You step into it, feeling the dampness settle on your skin. The earth smells rich and alive beneath your feet. At the far end of the street, a pair of traders lead donkeys laden with baskets, olive oil, pottery, perhaps cloth from distant towns. You nod as they pass, catching fragments of their low conversation, words about prices and road patrols. Your first task is at the granary, where the storekeeper asks for help shifting sacks of barley. You join the line of villagers, passing the heavy sacks hand to hand, feeling the coarse fabric scrape against your palms. The rhythm becomes almost meditative. Lift, pass, step, repeat. Dust rises with every movement, catching in the early light like tiny sparks. Somewhere in the line, someone begins humming a tune, and soon a few voices join, weaving melody through the labor. When the work is done, you linger a moment, wiping your hands on your tunic. The storekeeper speaks quietly of shortages to the north, of fields burned in skirmishes. You listen, not because you can change it, but because knowing matters. When he finishes, you simply nod, offer a small blessing for his stores, and step back into the street. By mid-morning, you've returned to your own tasks, mending a section of fence near the olive grove, checking traps set for small game. The grove is alive with birdsong today, a chatter and flutter that lifts your spirits. As you work, you notice a fallen nest, its delicate weave torn by wind. You pick it up, marveling at the patience that shaped it, then set it gently in the crook of a branch, hoping its maker will return. On your way back, you pass by Marcus's house. He's outside, sharpening a sickle on a whetstone, his motions slow but steady. You sit beside him without words, handing him a spare blade to tend to while you watch the road. After a while, he speaks, voice soft and thoughtful. "I wonder," he says, "if the men out there dream of home as we do." You answer only with a quiet hum because the thought is too heavy to unwrap fully. Later, you visit the smithy. The air inside is thick with heat and the tang of iron. The smith lifts a glowing piece of metal from the coals, striking it with measured blows. Sparks leap and vanish, and you watch, mesmerized by the transformation of raw ore into something useful. A plow tip, a hinge, a nail. He lets you hold a finished piece, still warm, and for a moment, you feel part of a chain stretching far beyond your village. Miners in distant hills, carriers on dusty roads, hands shaping. As afternoon wanes, you carry a bundle of firewood back home. The children race to meet you, faces flushed from play, hair tangled from the wind. They chatter about a game they invented, about how the smallest one insists on being the leader. You laugh, setting the wood down, and ruffle their hair. Your wife appears in the doorway, wiping flour from her hands, and smiles at the sight of you all together. Supper is simple: bread, a bit of cheese, a stew thick with lentils and greens. As you eat, you tell the children about the nest you found, describing its tiny twigs and soft feathers. Their eyes grow wide, and the youngest whispers, "Maybe the bird will come back." You smile and agree, because in your heart, you hope the same. When the meal is done, you carry a stool outside and sit watching the road. The traders have gone. The square is quiet. A few neighbors share quiet conversation, their voices low, the words indistinct. From a nearby house comes the sound of a lullaby, a soft melody floating into the night air. You close your eyes, letting the song blend with the distant chirp of crickets. Marcus joins you, carrying a small clay cup of wine. He sits, sighs, and says nothing. You sit in companionable silence, the two of you watching as the stars emerge. The night feels endless, the air cool and sweet. Somewhere beyond hills and seas, soldiers may still be marching, borders shifting, orders changing. But here, under this sky, the world feels steady. After a while, Marcus stands, mutters a good night, and leaves. You remain a moment longer, gazing up at the constellations you've known since childhood. You trace them with your eyes: the hunter, the serpent, the twins, imagining all the generations who have done the same. Inside, the children sleep curled against each other, and your wife folds away her work. You lie down beside them, feeling the rhythm of their breaths, the heartbeat of a home that endures. Tomorrow there will be work, as always, and perhaps news that stirs worry. But tonight there is this: the quiet, the stars, the certainty that life, in all its small tasks and gentle moments, continues. Morning comes softly again, as though the sun itself tiptoes into your room. You wake to the sound of a cart's wooden wheels creaking over stone and the distant murmur of voices preparing for market day. The light is warm on your face. You sit up slowly, brushing dust from your tunic, feeling the familiar weight of another day waiting to be lived. When you step outside, the air is bright and already touched with the scent of baking bread. In the distance, you hear the call of a cockerel and the clang of a pot against stone. The village hums with a quiet purpose, each person moving toward their tasks. You fall into that rhythm easily, walking toward the grove with a woven basket on your arm. The olive trees greet you with their silvery leaves, whispering in the breeze. You take your time today, checking each tree, brushing away dry leaves, lifting a branch here and there to let in light. The sun climbs higher, dappling your arms through the branches. You think of the soldiers you once saw years ago, how they rested under these same trees before moving on. The thought drifts away as you hear a bird call, a thrush, clear and bright. You pause to listen, letting the song fill the air around you. By mid-morning, Marcus joins you with news from the village square. "A traveling potter arrived," he says, lowering himself onto a stone. He carries colors in his work, reds and blues from far-off places. You picture them, bright against the plain clay walls of your home, and wonder if one day you might trade for such a treasure. Marcus talks of rumors, too, of new levies whispered about in the tavern. But you both let the words fade, unanchored, unwilling to let them spoil the morning. You return home with a basket of olives, the weight familiar, the work satisfying. Your wife is outside with your daughter, who is learning to spin thread. The child's hands fumble, the spindle wobbles, but she laughs at her own mistakes. You kneel beside her, showing her again how to guide the wool, how to keep the twist even. Her small brow furrows in concentration, and you feel that quiet pride that blooms when you see a new skill taking root. Later, you walk to the smithy to fetch a mended hoe. The smith hands it over, the metal edge sharp and clean. "Take care," he says with a nod. You thank him, thinking of how many lives his hands have touched through such simple tools. On the way back, you stop at the potter's stall. He unwraps a bowl painted with swirls of deep blue, like waves frozen in time. You cannot afford it today, but you let your fingers trace its cool surface, imagining it on your table, holding olives gleaming with oil. The potter smiles knowingly, as if he has seen that same look in many eyes. Afternoon light slants low as you work in the small vegetable patch behind your home. The soil is warm, soft from earlier rains. You plant seedlings, pressing each into place with care. Your son brings a jug of water, careful not to spill. He asks if plants listen when you speak to them, and you chuckle softly, telling him you've always believed they do. Together you murmur blessings over the seedlings, words passed down from elders, words older than the empire itself. As evening approaches, a breeze carries the scent of roasting barley and herbs. The village square glows golden as families return from their day's tasks. Children run in groups, their laughter echoing off the walls. You watch them chase shadows, remembering your own childhood when the world felt boundless and safe. At supper, your family gathers close. Tonight's meal is simple: bread dipped in oil, a bit of cheese, a handful of greens, but it tastes richer for the work that brought it to the table. You break the bread and pass it around, listening to your daughter chatter about her spinning, your son recount his discoveries in the patch. Your wife smiles, eyes soft in the lamplight. After the meal, you step outside with Marcus, carrying 2 stools to the edge of the square. Together you watch the last traders depart, their carts piled high, their lanterns bobbing into the dusk. The sky above deepens from gold to indigo, a single star brightening in the east. Marcus speaks of seasons, of how the olives grow thicker after a wet spring, of how the vines rest in winter. His words are slow, steady, woven with years of knowing the land. Night settles gently. A few neighbors sing a low tune, their voices blending with the chirp of crickets. The air cools, carrying the faint scent of smoke from distant fires. You close your eyes briefly, letting the sounds and smells root you in this place, this moment. When you return inside, the children are already curled beneath their blankets. Your wife hums as she folds the day's woven thread into a basket. You lie down beside them, feeling the warmth of their bodies, the softness of the mat beneath you. Outside, the night deepens, the stars bright as polished stones. You breathe slowly, deeply, feeling a steady calm seep through you. Tomorrow may bring news from far away, or perhaps nothing at all. But tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you hold on to this truth. Life endures in the small labors, in the laughter of children, in the rhythm of seasons. And as the world beyond your village shifts and churns, you rest in the quiet certainty of home. The sun greets you with a soft orange glow, spreading warmth over the rooftops as you rise. Today feels like any other, yet something in the air feels deeper, as though the world itself wants you to notice it more carefully. You step outside and stand quietly for a moment, letting the sounds of early life wrap around you. The cluck of hens, the shuffle of sandals on stone, a baby's faint cry drifting from a nearby home. You begin your morning by walking toward the fields. The earth is cool beneath your feet, still touched by night's dew. Along the path, you see wildflowers swaying in the breeze, tiny bursts of color against the muted tones of soil and stone. You stop to pluck one and tuck it into your belt, a small charm against whatever the day might hold. At the edge of the grove, you pause and listen. The wind moves through the olive branches, making a sound like soft rain. You remember stories told by elders that these trees remember every hand that ever worked among them, every song sung, every prayer whispered. You reach out and touch the rough bark, feeling a strange comfort in its solid, unchanging strength. Mid-morning finds you helping Marcus gather kindling. His movements are slower today, but his eyes still carry that familiar glint of stubbornness. As you work side by side, he tells you of his youth, of marching down roads under a blazing sun, of nights spent on cold ground with only a thin blanket between himself and the stars. He speaks softly, as though telling the story to himself as much as to you. When he finishes, you both stand in silence, gazing out over the fields, grateful to be here rather than there. You return to the village carrying bundles of sticks, and the streets are alive with life. A potter shaping clay on his wheel, a pair of children carrying water jars too big for them, a dog sprawled in a patch of sunlight. You greet each sight with a nod or a smile, feeling a quiet kinship with all who labor here, each person weaving their small thread into the fabric of the day. At home, your wife is grinding grain for bread. You take your turn at the stone, pushing steadily, letting the rhythm of the movement lull your mind. She hums a tune, one you remember from your own childhood, and the melody brings a warmth to your chest that words cannot touch. Nearby, your daughter carefully winds the thread she spun yesterday, proud of its evenness. You praise her, and she beams, cheeks flushed with joy. By midday, the sun is high and the air hums with cicadas. You gather your family for a meal under the shade of a fig tree. Bread, cheese, and olives. Simple things, yet each bite carries the work of many hands. You break bread, pass it to your son, watch him tear it carefully for his sister. You see the kindness in that small gesture, and you hold it close, knowing that such moments are the true wealth of life. After the meal, you take a walk along the road that leads out of the village. The horizon stretches wide, hills rolling gently under a pale sky. A caravan approaches in the distance, their shapes wavering in the heat. When they pass, you exchange brief words, asking of weather, of news, of roads ahead. They tell you the wars still rage far away, but here, for now, there is peace. You watch them vanish down the road, their voices fading, and you feel a strange gratitude that your life is measured not by battles, but by days like these. As evening draws near, you and Marcus repair a section of stone wall by the grove. The work is quiet, patient. You fit each stone carefully, mindful of balance and strength. When you are done, you step back and look at it. The wall is not perfect, but it will hold. Marcus claps your shoulder, and you both stand there, breathing in the smell of earth and dusk. The village glows in the golden light of sunset. Children run home. Goats are herded into pens. Smoke curls upward from hearths. You return to your doorway, leaning against the frame, watching as lanterns flicker to life one by one. Your wife calls softly, and you step inside to share the evening meal, voices low, laughter easy, the shadows gentle around you. Night falls, calm and steady. You sit outside once more, Marcus beside you, each of you holding a cup of watered wine. The stars scatter across the sky, brilliant and endless. You talk of planting schedules, of small repairs to be done, of the potter's painted bowl you might one day trade for. The talk drifts, fades into comfortable silence. The wind carries a faint song from somewhere deep in the village, a lullaby perhaps, or a hymn. You close your eyes, letting it wash over you. The day's labors slip away, leaving only the soft glow of contentment. The wars, the empire, the burdens beyond your reach, they all seem distant now, like echoes of another world. You rise slowly, stretch, and step back into your home. The children are asleep, their faces peaceful in the lamplight. Your wife smiles faintly as she folds the last of the cloth. You lie down beside them, feeling the solid earth beneath, the weight of the roof above, the steady beat of life all around you. And as sleep overtakes you, you hold on to this final thought, that in the vastness of history, in the turbulence of empires and endless wars, there is still space for ordinary days. Days filled with work, with care, with quiet joys that no storm can erase. Here in this small village you have lived and loved and endured, and that is enough.